Let me tell you something nobody really prepares you for in life the moment you see a quiet teacher become a living legend right before your eyes, flipping the whole script on what power, courage, and change can look like in a place as ordinary and brutal as an American high school. You think you know how these stories go, right? Bullies win, teachers cope, nothing changes. But man, what happened at Riverside High with Madison Carter? That was the day everything broke wide open, not just for one school, but for kids and educators all over the country who'd just about given up on miracles. You want to know the craziest part? It all started on a Tuesday. So normal it hurt, kids dragging backpacks, drama humming under their breath, teachers clinging to coffee cups, bracing for the next round. Madison had been at Riverside all of 3 months and change, blending in so, well, she could have been mistaken for a librarian, anywhere ponytail, soft sweaters, gentle voice, you know the type. She made kids feel safe talking about poetry, about the stuff they'd never say out loud to anyone else. But here's the kicker under those cardigans. Madison had a secret. Not a crush or a hidden tattoo. Nosh was a former pro MMA fighter, the kind who could in about in 90 seconds and then help you up off the mat. She'd spent 3 years hiding that part of herself, determined to leave violence in the rearview mirror and just teach. Turns out, the world had other plans. Now, Brandon Phillips, she ran the halls at Riverside like a mob boss with a Letterman jacket. 6'2", sharp blue eyes, surrounded by his sidekicks Tyler and Jake. He could make anyone fold with a look or a shove. He loved finding the weak spot in any teacher, pushing limits just enough to keep adults at bay, but never quite crossing a line he couldn't talk his way out of. The kids feared him. The teachers dreaded his name on their class lists. And Madison, well, she saw right through him, but she played it cool, at least until the day he cornered Sarah Thompson in the hallway. Let me set the scene for you. Sarah is this tiny sophomore, barely talks, but writes the kind of poetry that could make you cry in the teacher's lounge. Brandon and his boys had her boxed in, all fake grins and venom. Madison heard the noise, that edge in a scared kid's voice no teacher ever wants to hear, and she didn't hesitate. She walked straight into that hornet's nest, asked if there was a problem. Brandon, smirked classic alpha, moved trying to flex on a woman half his size in front of his friends. That's when the script flipped. You could feel the way Tyler's phone slid out, ready to record, the way Jake cracked his knuckles like he thought he was in a movie. Madison didn't flinch. She told Sarah to get a class, her voice quiet but so firm, even Brandon stopped posturing for a second. Then he did it, grabbed her sweater, intending to slam her against the lockers, probably imagining the viral clip that would make him king for another day. Instead, in one motion so fast and fluid it looked like CGI, Madison hip-tossed Brandon hard enough to dent steel. 20 kids watching live, a hallway that went silent as a church. Tyler's phone catching every frame a bully was on his back, staring up at a woman who, 5 seconds ago, had looked like she couldn't hurt a fly. "Are you hurt, Brandon?" she asked. Not a hint of malice, just calm and control. The gym coach came running, saw the scene, muttered, "Holy silent storm," and that nickname stuck faster than any black eye. The principal, Mr. Harrison, hustled her into his office, diplomas on the wall, photos of grandkids, all that, and, to Madison's shock, pulled out a file with her real name. Turns out, he'd known her secret all along. He'd hired her because he needed someone who could teach and protect, someone who could handle the Brandons of the world without turning into one herself. He wasn't mad, not really. He was relieved. "We needed someone like you," he said, "someone the kids could believe in." But as they talked, Madison's phone blew up, texts, missed calls, hundreds of notifications. Tyler's video had gone viral, and there was no putting that genie back in the bottle. That should have been the end. Teacher defends herself. Internet explodes. Everyone moves on. But that's not how real life works. There was a twist waiting. As soon as word got out, Brandon disappeared. His mom called, said his stepdad had picked him up, but nobody had signed him out. Madison's gut twisted. She knew what that meant. She'd seen it in her own life, in gyms full of lost kids. Sarah, sweet, quiet Sarah, texted Madison a Leodan abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. Brandon's stepdad used to teach him lessons there. Madison didn't hesitate. She found them: Derek, drunk on power, pummeling Brandon for shaming the family. Madison filmed just enough to make sure there'd be evidence, then stepped in offering Derek a way out or a fight. He picked wrong. You want cinematic? Derek came at her with every ounce of rage a failed man can summon. Madison danced, slipped, countered, then choked him out textbook, fast, brutal, and merciful all at once. When Brandon asked, "Is he dead?" she knelt beside him, checked his pulse, and said softly, "He's fine." Real strength is about protecting, not destroying. The cops showed. So did the principal. Brandon's video of the assault put Derek away for years. But what changed everything was the way the story exploded online. From teacher throws student to secret MMA fighter saves abused kid, the narrative went national overnight. That night at the school board, with the whole town packed in and cameras everywhere, people were ready to argue, punish her, or praise her. But then Brandon stood there with a bruised face and told the truth. She saved my life. Not just from my stepdad, but from what I was becoming. 4-minute standing ovation. And just when you thought the scene couldn't get wilder, in walks Dana White, big-time fight promoter, waving a contract $2 million for a comeback main event. But Madison looked at her students, at Brandon, and said, "I've already got the fight I care about right here." The crowd went wild. Instead of going back to the cage, Madison pitched a new idea partnership to fund anti-bullying and self-defense programs for teachers. Dana White ran with Ida Docuseri's Teacher Fight Club, filmed right there at Riverside, showing educators learning to protect themselves and their students. The real fight, she said, is in these classrooms, every day for kids who need someone in their corner. 6 months on, Riverside was unrecognizable. Bullying was down 90%. Brandon became the school's anti-bullying leader, training in jiu-jitsu, channeling his pain into purpose. Tyler's YouTube channel blew up. He's telling positive stories from schools across the country. Sarah won a national poetry contest. Her piece, "The Day Someone Stood Up," is required reading in 3 states. The warehouse where Brandon was beaten became a community center, offering free classes for kids in need, a living symbol that even the darkest places can be turned around when somebody chooses to act. On the last day of school, Madison found a note from Brandon. "Thank you for showing me real strength. I'm going to spend my life making sure other kids never have to get hurt to learn that lesson." Years later, he called her from college, launching a nonprofit to help kids who'd grown up just like him. Sarah became a published poet and motivational speaker. Tyler started a media company focused on hopeful stories. And in schools all across America, teachers started standing a little taller, believing a little harder that ordinary people could be heroes. They call it the Madison Carter effect. One person's refusal to let injustice stand, rippling outward until whole communities start to change. I mean, what's more powerful than that? Not a viral video, not even a championship belt. It's the choice again and again to protect, to speak, to act. That's what sticks. So, let me ask you, have you ever seen someone turn their pain into purpose, or been changed by a moment when someone stood up for what's right? Share your story below, because every small act of courage has the power to start a movement, and someone out there needs to know that real heroes aren't just found on screens. They're sitting in classrooms, waiting for their moment to step up.